Hello everyone, Satorn here giving you another quick Vicky 3 tutorial. This is for beginner players and maybe even intermediate players to talk about kind of how you should prioritize your gameplay as you go through Vicky 3. Depending on your timelines and depending on maybe your nation, there's different things you should focus on. And if you're not used to a grand strategy game, I'm hoping this will help you out. So let's get into it. So I'm going to break this video up into early game, mid game, and late game. If you're early game and a small nation, I would definitely start in that section. And then mid game is like if you're a large nation, let's say you're already France or you're starting this way, you're already big. So your priorities of gameplay are going to definitely be different. And they may be like towards the mid game or late game. And again, mid game is going to be 1871 to 1900, and then the late game is going to be 1901 to 1935. And what I'm going to talk about is all these different categories. There's 10 of them. I'm going to be talking about population and money, interest groups and laws, construction, declared interest, technology, military, navy, and standard of living. Starting with early game, or if you're a small nation, let's talk about population. That's one of the first things you're going to want to worry about. So I'm going to look at an example here of Cambodia in one of my playthroughs that I had. We have 700,000 people in the population, but what you really want to look at is the amount of peasants, and we have 100,000 people. That's not a lot. Over the course of the game, this is like very, very small. So the first things we needed to look for, or I wanted to look for, was where can I get more population? Migration will get you so far, but if you really want to grow fast, it's not going to be enough. So I would look towards other nations or other states and seeing where potentially you could pick up some more peasants. So over here, you can see Mekong is 300,000 peasants. So that will be a huge impact if we're able to get these peasants or take over this land in some way. So that's from Dynam. There's also other lands and stuff over here. So I would start looking around for population, figure out what to do. You can also do this with laws as well. If you have maybe a decent sized nation and all you need to do is free up some people, you can get rid of slavery. You can do some rights of women laws, or children's rights will actually probably hurt you. So you want to keep that labor allowed. But if you're trying to squeeze out some more population, but you can see early game, especially if you're small, you got to worry about where am I going to get all the people to work. Number 2 is money early game, especially, again, small nation. You're not going to have a lot of money. You don't have a lot of people working. You can build more buildings, but that's going to be slow as well. Your construction's kind of bad. We're only 7. So you have to figure out, all right, min-max the best that you can. You want to lower government wages if you can, your military wages. At this point, you could potentially do that in the budget. I do see a lot of people recommending that. However, what it does hurt your quality or your standard of living, because now these people don't have enough money. So anyone who's in the military service doesn't have enough money to buy like regular services, so the standard of living goes down. But if you're in a pinch like we are, I think this is okay to do to start. And but I would look for every opportunity to kind of get these back to a normal wage. I would definitely recommend. But money is going to be your first thing. So getting your economy going, getting more buildings built, and ones that are going to be profitable with the resources that you have is going to be definitely your next priority, for gameplay. Money might be hard and you're not sure what to do. Well, the next thing you have to really look at is your interest groups and your laws, because this can help out as well. So you can check under here. Usually smaller nations, or a good chunk of them, are traditionalism, and it's really bad. So you do want to try to start getting towards agrarianism potentially, or interventionism. These are very good, and then you'll start getting an investment pool and you'll start making some more money. So that's definitely a goal. So if you do want to go these directions, you got to see who's willing to be a part of it and make sure you get the right interest groups. So you can hover over that and you can see who's supporting it. So here's the rural folk, as well as the industrialists and the trade unions. So we would want to get more people into those type of jobs. And you would also, that relates to the, number 4 really, or 3 and 4, right? So laws and interest groups. So here you would want to make sure you start taking a look at all your different interest groups. And like we said, we want to get the rural folk happier, or we want to get them more powerful. So we want to get them in there, and then we'll probably want to get the monks out. And we don't even have industrialists yet, right? So they're happy, but they're very, very weak in the trade union. So this is why it'd be very hard for us to change the economy. But we do want to take a look at this, and we want to figure out, okay, who makes these up? The rural folks are peasants, clergy, and other professions. The industrialists are going to be your shopkeepers, and early on here, your servicemen, as well as your clerks and your bureaucrats or your trade union. So these, you do want to maybe make some more jobs to help these interest groups grow, so you can get the laws that you want. Especially, like I said, economic system is one of them. The other ones potentially is definitely your Your army doesn't matter as much, but sometimes can definitely help get rid of that landowner control, which is nice. Migration can kind of help, but not really. Slavery would be nice to free up. Schools are too expensive usually, or police or health. If you're a small nation, if you're bigger than these, you can probably go. But I would definitely go for your economic system and your taxation, right? So how you tax is very big too. So I would say economic system and taxes are definitely good. Land based is okay to start, but you do want to start getting to per capita as you start getting even more and more people working. What's not good about this is the income tax is only 10%. So the per capita goes up to 20%, and then your consumption tax rate is about the same, and you get a little bit more with your land tax there. But what you may need to do too for your budget and for your money is you do need to use some of your authority and get some consumption taxes going, and then maybe later on you can back off on these. Again, this does hurt your standard of living if that's something that you're worrying about, but early on in the game, and if you're small, trust me, your standard of living is the last thing you're going to be worrying about. Construction is number 5 on the list, and really you're not going to be able to do much as a small nation, or earlier on in the game you're not going to have too many. You got to remember, every construction sector is going to be using quite a bit of money because it's going to be using wood and fabric, which then you buy as the government. So you see here, construction goods, so all that money gets spent, and if you don't have a lot of extra money, this is going to cost quite a bit. You could try to keep your wood and fabric really low, but it's still, there's going to be a cost here. So really, you may only have 1 or 2 construction sectors, which is not going to give you very much. So you have 7 construction, means things are going to build very, very slow. But this is by any means possible. Make more money, try to get your construction going, because that's definitely will make your game easier as time goes on. So that's why it's number 5. It could be a little bit higher, but honestly, you need people to work it, you need money, and you start to have to get your laws in the right direction before you can really, I think, focus on this more. And number 6 is declared interest, which is really just the politics. This is what I'm trying to say, is that you need to make sure you understand what's going on around you and understand your current situation. So, for example, as Cambodia, right, we're a tributary of Dynam. So we're not going to be doing anything against Dynam for quite a while because they're much bigger. But we know that Dynam may join some of our wars if we want to, which is nice. But when we do that, that also means Dynam will take over the war. Right, so you got to kind of keep all those things in mind. So what we'd like to do is potentially have fights for land without Dynam getting involved, but another country getting involved, maybe one of the great powers. So maybe the Great Qing we can make as a friend, or Russia, or wherever they have the declared interest. Usually Britain, France are around. I'll try to get them as friends. So we'd want to start that right away. So when we are ready to potentially start the war, what we want to do is use them to scare this nation and to be able to get this land. Like, we could actually do this with 0 military, which is really the only way to play it when you're a super small nation. Because even now, if we take a look at our military compared to theirs, their military, Siam's 45 battalions. We've got, if we were in the fight alone, we have 10. So, right, this is not going to happen. So we definitely need some outside support. So that's what I mean by declared interest, and why really you got to plan that out now. So some things can play out, during the early game, and for you to get that land to increase your population. Number 7 is technology. You're not going to have to worry about this too much early on. You're probably going to be pretty small unless, you're one of the top 5 nations or top 10. There's no way you're going to be near your cap or your limit. So really just, I would say, cherry pick the what you think the technologies are going to be good. I think I have another video on that. That'll be useful early on in each of the categories. So I would focus on that. And then I would also, your military, Navy, like we just talked about, our military is small, but we don't have any money, right? So we're not going to be able to have any military because our money's bad. So that's why money's much higher on the list of priorities. The same thing as Navy. Navy costs even more than Army, but they do take a long time to train up. So you do want to get these started at some point, but now is definitely not the time. And standard of living, like we explained before, there's no way you're going to meet the standard of living for your people this early if you're a small nation. If you're a large nation, you might be able to already do it, but early on as someone small, again, that's number 10 in the priority list. So now we're talking more mid-game, and number 1 should be your construction, and we're at 51 now, so we went from 17 to 51, and mid-game is about 1871 to 1900, so around here we're getting closer to the end of this mid-game, so we're at 1897. But yeah, you want to get your construction up and as high as you can, so you're pushing, again, looking at your money, right? You should always be looking at the balance here. White is okay, As long as once the number starts showing red, it means you're in a huge deficit. And as long as you've got some gold reserves, with 4 million in gold reserves, it's okay to run your economy in a deficit as long as you keep increasing. So you want to keep on that line, keep it balanced, but increase your construction is definitely the most important. And the number 2 is money, right? So your money is going to impacts everything. You can see your weird balance chart, how it went down and up. That's probably because I put more buildings in who were doing well, and then I put some more construction to keep that going. So that's definitely number 2, because money runs everything. And now you should be worrying about, and this jumps up from early game, is technology. You should be trying to, and I haven't probably yet this playthrough, but what you want to do is try to get your innovation as high as your max here, as well as your literacy rate. So if you're not quite there yet, which we're not here, so we're 59 to 117, that would be my next thing, definitely going into what I consider a later game. So we're definitely behind, and actually as this playthrough went, I was behind. So that's why I'm saying have this a little bit higher on your list. Start looking at that as a priority. Next are a few things you probably should already have wrapped up or kind of good. So number 4 is population. By now, hopefully you're big enough to where population shouldn't be that big of a concern. Here we have a bunch of lands that at least have 100,000, 300,000, and 400,000. So now we have way more than enough people that we need to keep building. And of course we want to have that, not go down, but we have enough now to keep expanding, just our country alone. Even if we don't take any more land, we're in good shape. Also, laws would be the next one. So that would be number 5. I would make sure you're kind of where you want to be on most of your laws. Some of them you still might not be able to do it. Like slavery is now banned. Migration controls are in, which is good. So we got even more people. We got propertied women. Serfdom's abolished. We have our trade policy that we like. We have protectionism. We have per capita taxation. We have interventionism, so our economic system. We even have some, some luxuries here: public schools, as well as charity hospitals, and actually our cultural exclusion, which eventually you want to get to multiculturalism. So our laws are in actually very good shape by this point. They should be. So that's why I have it in the middle. You shouldn't have to focus too much, but you want to get these wrapped up. And the same thing, your interest groups, hopefully, because you got all these laws passed, should be under control, right? So you should have them pretty much where you want them roughly to be able to pass the laws that you need with a decent amount of legitimacy. That's where you want to be at this point in the game. And then declared interest, of course, just about in the same area as it was early game. Always keeping an eye out what's going on around in the areas, making sure that you know who you can get involved in with wars, what wars are going on. It's always good to pause the game and take a look and see, because you may be able to take advantage somewheres, if you just take a moment and think about it. So I would definitely do that. If you can also colonize, I would say this is where declared interest comes in too. If you're a small nation and there's anything left, you should be able to, maybe early mid game. But my recommendation for colonization in general, and the reason why I didn't say it early game, is that unless you're a large nation, it's almost not worth it. It's a race that you're probably not going to win against the great powers. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. I have military navy on the bottom again of your list, unless you go into war a lot at this point. If again, now you're very sizable and you got a lot going on, like maybe you're Austria-Hungary now, or you're Prussia. Yeah, for sure. And military navy may be of a higher priority than some of the other stuff, like maybe your interest groups and your laws aren't as important because you were able to get the laws that you needed beforehand. So now military and navy are more important, right? So it all depends on your nation and how quickly you evolve in those different areas. So, these priorities that I'm giving you are not like clear cut, but they're giving you a rough idea of where you hopefully should be on in the game. So here, again, even in Cambodia, I wasn't worried too much about my military and navy. I have 56, so I did grow, right? Because I think we're like 15 or something to start. So yeah, we're bigger, and we got a couple flotillas, so we can actually do some naval invasions and things like that. But I didn't focus on it, right? The biggest thing is I wanted to grow my GDP, I wanted to grow my population, and I wanted to make sure my laws were in the place where I could, so I could really boom in the late game. And then standard of living, again, I really didn't care about. It went up on its own. Wasn't something that I really watched. And radicals versus loyalists also really weren't much of an issue. I'm hoping in the later patches this will be more of a concern. But right now, I say standard of living is just low priority. Now we're in the late game, 1901 to 1935. Again, this may be earlier than that time frame for you, depending on the size of your nation. But the priorities of gameplay that I would say is military and navy, if that's your play style. If you want to keep doing more wars, for sure this is the time to grow. And you can see here we went to 159 battalions and 30 flotillas. Our Navy could have been bigger, but it was pretty tough. We were already a pariah with our infamy. Some people definitely, I know you guys in the comments like to say don't worry about the number, but in this playthrough I had to, because the minute I hit 100 I had the other top nations trying to break me apart. So I tend to be careful about infamy. But yeah, military, Navy, definitely 1 and 2 this late on in the game, as well as your declared interests. I have a lot that I'm not even using. So really knowing what's going on around the world is very important at the end of the game here. Like I said, you can get attacked if your infamy is too high. Technology as well, you want to be finished by now, and I know in this playthrough I was not. So like I said, I feel like I made a mistake mid-game not focusing enough on technology, and I fell behind. And at this point, where France, Great Britain, some of the other great powers, and that's why I couldn't get to like 1, 2, or 3, had all these technologies, were making cool things, were already making automobiles and airplanes before I was able to. So that made a kind of a huge difference. So declared interests are important, technology, like I said, and then money becomes less important, because I mean I have a 20 million gold reserve. I had 4 million before. The amount of money that we're making is just insane. By this point, if your nation's big enough, money really isn't an issue, but you should still be doing that same balance like I'm talking about. I might do another video on this where you should be, if your gold reserve is totally full, you definitely should be spending money. And if it's too low, then yeah, you want to start gaining money, or you want your cash flow to be a positive. But you really want to just keep using as much of your money as possible to keep just growing your economy. So that's really important. So even in the late game, money is still important. I consider it like 5 on the list. So that's pretty good. Construction's number 6. Because you're going to be building like crazy. Again, some people might say this needs to be a lot higher. I think you're naturally going to be just building more. You don't even have to think about it. So that's why I don't have it high on the list. These are like priorities that you need to like mentally think, oh, I should be worrying about this or that. And at this point, you should be worrying about military if you want to go to war. Also laws. By now, hopefully your laws are taken care of. If they aren't, then you're behind for sure. Like at this point in late game, I'm hoping most of your stuff, maybe you have 1 or 2 laws that you're looking to change that got rejected a lot. That's fine, but you really should be in good shape there. Standard of living, if you care about it, again, I would start looking at that a little bit. Population should be no concern at this point. If it is, then again, you didn't take too much land, or you just didn't plan enough. I mean, I have 4 million people in just one state. And I have another 1.6 million that I can't even use. So I can't build fast enough. I could have more construction. My economy could be better. If I had more time in the game, I would just be cranking, and then I would have made it to number 1. So definitely, at this point, population shouldn't be an issue, and interest groups definitely shouldn't. Right, so you should just be trying to shoot for the laws that you need. Your government, you should be able to be interchangeable, getting groups in and out without any issue. As a beginner player or maybe intermediate, I hope you found this video useful. This is just kind of a guide loosely, right, to give you a feel for what the early game, mid game, and late game should be if you're playing an average nation. If you're playing it, like I said, a great power right from the beginning, to me, the game is already easy at that point, because you're in the early game, but you're probably already playing as if you were in the mid and late game, which is crazy. So this is really geared for if you're doing an average nation or maybe a smaller nation. What are the things you should be prioritizing as you're playing, kind of thinking of in the background, and take a pause in the game, because that's what's great about these is you pause it and be like, okay, let me go through this. Let me get an idea about my population or my money or my technology, and make sure that you're in a good spot. Hit that like, subscribe, notification button. They're free. And as always,
for the swarm.